Hello and welcome to The Well-Appointed Mystic. Today I would like to do the Let's Be Tarot Friends tarot tag. This is the first time that I've done a forward-facing video on my channel, and also the first time that I've done a tarot tag. So please be patient with me. It is unbearably hot, so I already look sweaty. It is 97 degrees outside, I think, maybe a little warmer. We're in a heat advisory and I'm sitting facing a very hot light. So because my studio is in a dark corner of my house. And so anyway, thank you for your patience. I keep looking over here because I have the list of questions off to the side. And then I have my pile of decks here. And I don't know that I found everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about, but hopefully this will be enough so that you don't just have to look at this. And so the first question for the Let's Be Friends tarot tag is, what kind of art are you looking for in a tarot deck? And I have waffled back and forth about what I really am looking for, because it's one of those things that I feel like there's a lot of I will know what I like when I see it kind of a vibe with a lot of looking at art for tarot decks. I really like vintage style artwork. I myself do a lot of vintage inspired digital collage work, so I tend to gravitate towards that. Things like, oh sorry, this is super shiny, but things like the Tarot of Mystical Moments is a huge inspiration for me. There's just a lot, like I like the digital collage work because it has a lot of detail. It's very well executed and really pretty. And so, you know, this is probably my favorite. I wish these cards were not shiny. And they're also enormous. I do know that there is a mini deck coming out sometime, I think around Halloween. They're doing I think a deck and a tin kind of a thing. This is US Games, so yeah, it's probably a deck and a tin, and it hopefully will not be this shiny, but I suspect that they'll probably use the same paper stock. It'll just be smaller. Hopefully that'll make a difference. But anyway, so while I don't exclusively get decks that have vintage artwork, it is something that I like. Mostly I think it's that I like art that's really like consistent throughout the entire deck. Like if some of it is more painterly, like, I mean, I have one deck that's like done like crazy collage style that I do sort of enjoy, but like for the most part, it just has to be well executed, well created, and consistent. You know. So what do I search for in a deck? I mean, there's other questions in this list about like specific cards, like if I'm looking for a specific card. So when I'm looking at decks, it's more curiosity. You know, the honest truth, I don't need any more tarot decks, so I really shouldn't be looking for tarot decks at all. But, you know, we do what we do. And, you know, so it's like mostly what I'm looking for are, you know, just seeing what's out there and how other people are interpreting the tarot. I think probably a different perspective or a new point of view. So what decks am I most intrigued by right now? I had been looking into the sort of alchemical decks, which I am very intrigued by getting more involved in those. But I also feel like I have been doing a lot of like sort of heavy duty deck study work this year, and I'm not entirely sure that I should dive into the deep well that is alchemical decks. So I would say that the deck I'm most intrigued by right now is the Tarot Landscapes, just because it is just a very different interpretation of the tarot. And I feel like if I want to do like a seasonal deep dive, this is going to be a better option than trying to go all the way to an alchemical deck. I just think that this is these are really interesting, and I think has a lot of things to sort of chew on and get involved in. So tarot landscapes is sort of my new big interest. So okay, next question. Is there a card in the deck that you always check out, and why? For me, I'm very partial to the Strength card and the Star card. And although I've discovered that as I go through these questions, there's probably other cards I should look at more closely. But those are the ones. I like to see what people do with the Strength card, but in all honesty, I really like when there's a lion on it. And the Star card, I'm always fascinated. It's a card that that means a lot to me. It kind of was one of my very first stalker cards, and I mean, I guess as stalker cards go, that's not a bad one to have. But yeah, so I tend to look at that one. What is my favorite and least favorite card in tarot? I would say it depends on the deck. Like each deck I have a favorite and a least favorite card in the deck, and sometimes I have lots of favorites and lots of least favorites. But I mean, there's always a deck that surprises you and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the most amazing tower card I've ever seen. I love it. I love this tarot card. I love how it communicates what the tower is all about, where that's not necessarily a card that people look for and are feel like, oh, it must be this way. So for me, that's one. Like, it's a case where each deck I have a different favorite based on the deck itself. Long and short of it, is there one card in a deck if there's one card in a deck you really don't like, would you not buy it or pass it on? I have had visceral reactions. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's things like I can tend to stumble over really overt pregnant Empress cards. Like, those really can turn me off. As someone who has not been pregnant and has not had children, like, I don't have that connection to pregnancy being creation in the way that someone who may have had children feel about it. So for me, there are so many other ways to communicate creation and creativity and life giving and all that kind of stuff. And there are so many decks already that kind of have that pregnant Empress that I feel like it's not necessary in every deck. And obviously there are some decks that just were not designed for me at all, and you can have all the pregnant Empress cards that you want. Sometimes it makes me sad when I find a deck that I really, really like, and then there's like the pregnant Empress. Like the Tarot of Mystical Moments has sort of a pregnant Empress card in it, and while it's beautifully done, I feel like the figure that the artist used in the deck looks so young that it looks like teen pregnancy to me, and that kind of bugs me. I hope I haven't just ruined the Tarot of Mystical Moments for you by saying that, but she just looks like a baby. I'm trying to flip through really quickly to see if I can find it. But yeah, so it's like, the idea of showing like babies having babies is, I mean, otherwise the card is handled very beautifully, and it doesn't bother me in the way that some others might. Here we go. I mean, she looks like a child. That's my problem with this one. But otherwise, I think it's a lovely card. I just wish that the figure or the face had been just slightly more mature, but she does look like she's like 5 years old. So anyway, yeah. So those are the kinds of things that might affect my decision to either buy a deck or pass it on. This one, obviously, I didn't pass it on or anything. There's other decks that I have. Let's see. What do people close to you feel about you doing tarot and tarot in general? Not a lot of people in my life know about it. And as I've been introducing people and kind of coming out of the broom closet, so to speak, the reaction has been better than I really expected. I mean, I don't like, my parents would probably roll their eyes at me and be like, oh, there she goes doing more weird stuff. But, what they don't know is basically I've been weird like this since I was in high school. So, they probably suspected. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like, there are people in my life that I don't think would get it, or appreciate it the way that I do. So I just try not to have the conversation with them at all. So yeah, which just sucks because, there's a lot of people who talk about their beliefs and their faith and have no qualms about how it makes other people feel uncomfortable. So I feel like it's a little unfair that we can't talk about our faith and what the things that we do for our spiritual growth and development, without fearing that we've made someone else uncomfortable. Not fair. Not fair. So next question, how do you feel about the esoteric stuff in tarot? I am clearly, since I mentioned the alchemical tarot decks earlier, clearly I'm not bothered by it. I like the symbolism. I like the added layers of meaning. I feel like it gives everybody an opportunity to find their own way to find meaning. When there's things like the tree of life, integrated into a card or into a deck, just all of the those layers, the astrological information, the other types of symbolism, the alchemical symbols, like all of that just adds layers of meaning that can be delved into earlier or later in someone's tarot practice. I just feel like it adds more nuance to what we're studying and what we're getting out of our tarot readings. So RWS, Marseille, or Thoth, I don't even know how to say it, but you know what I mean. Right now I'm firmly in the Rider-Waite-Smith camp simply because that is what I've been most exposed to and had most experience with. I am definitely interested in learning more about the Marseille and getting better at reading tarot with pips. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. My thoughts on cardstock. Oh, I have lots of thoughts on cardstock. I am a paper snob, but I also appreciate that lots of companies now are producing tarot decks, and not all of them are coming at it from the same place that someone like US Games or Llewellyn, who have been doing this for a really long time and have both listened to and heard feedback from tarot users. So yeah, I definitely have opinions about paper stock, the soft touch lamination, what people refer to as rose petal finish. It actually gives me the heebies, like nails on a chalkboard heebies. I really don't like it. I have a couple decks that I would love to use more frequently, but just that weird plastic sticky feel of those cards make it very difficult for me to want to use them. And I know that that makes me like super, super snobby. The super shiny, the super glossy cards like these, not my favorite. They're also giant and I have little tiny baby hands, so I have a hard time shuffling. But in the case of the tarot, what is this? Mystical Moments, Tarot of Mystical Moments. It had the like very sharp foil edges, which I just sanded down using sandpaper. So it actually, now the edges feel just like the cards. They're really slick, which is fine. It is what it is. So slick, not my favorite. Cardboardy, like the tarot landscapes. This is a bit more like cards, like actual cardstock, with a matte like a matte varnish rather than a lamination, I think. So it doesn't feel quite so sticky. It's okay. I'm sure that this is probably not super durable. Really, my favorite paper stocks would be like Llewellyn, Los Scarabeo, and US Games. They, for mass market decks, they're the ones that have been doing it longest and doing it best. And now that they've all started to add in things like linen finishes and stuff, but I mean, like, they really are sort of the Cadillac of tarot decks. Let's see, like I have the Secret of the Witch's Garden, which is the wonderful, brain just stopped. The wonderful linen finish, and which is so funny because it's like I grew up as a designer, and like one of my first jobs was designing, like working at a Kinko's, laying out resumes for people, and like one of the things that people would always ask for when we would print out their resume is to put it on linen finished paper because it was classier. And we just would all kind of like, throw up a little in our mouth because we're just like, ugh, it's not classier, it's gross, and at the time we were very into like the speckled papers and, that kind of thing. And, linen finish felt very like old school and things that, but now it's like, I'm just as guilty as everyone else in the tarot community in loving the linen finish papers. So, yeah. Okay, there. I told you I had a lot of thoughts on paper and soft touch. Matte lamination is disgusting. Blech. Blech. Bags or boxes. The short answer is pouches. I don't know why, but like, I guess this counts as a bag, but it's not a bag in the way that other people think of with the, like the pull string top. But yeah, so I like to knit my own bags. I love Moonlit Faye's fabric baggies with the magnetic closure and the cute fabric. And she often makes them to match specific decks, which I also think is amazeballs and super cool. But yeah, and boxes, if it's a deck with a book that all fit very neatly into their box, I will often leave them that way unless they're like sort of in regular rotation and used on a daily basis, and then I'm inclined to put them in a bag. I don't know why. It's like making a little blankie for my deck and makes it feel all safe and cozy. Okay, next question. How did you get into tarot? I probably was one of those kids who was always into the spooky, the witchy, like I read if a book had a witch in it as a kid, like that was the thing that I loved. So getting me from that point in my life to actual tarot cards was a very short trip. And it certainly didn't hurt anything that after I graduated from college, I lived 2 blocks from the occult bookstore in Wicker Park in Chicago, and I got to walk by it every day, and it was hard for me to not veer in every day and look at what they had, even though I was poor, like right out of school kind of a person. I loved to go in there and look around and talk to people. I made a really good friend who was one of the clerks in the occult bookstore. We ended up in a coven together. Like, it's a whole lifestyle. But yeah, so it was early 90s. I picked up my first couple tarot decks, but that was also like pre-internet and access to other people who were involved in it. So short of the people who were sort of directly in my circle, I didn't have a lot of people that I knew who did tarot or read tarot books or had any information. So it was a lot of thumbing through the cards and reading the little white guidebook and everything and trying to make heads or tails of it. But also, I had to wait for the right time. And so about 3 years ago, I rediscovered tarot, and it's been kind of gangbusters ever since. And I think part of it is I had to get to a point in my life where maybe I was less worried about what other people thought. though it's still, it's a little nerve-wracking. So yeah. Let's see, what's the next question? Oh, best news I've heard in tarot lately. Besides the Tarot of Mystical Moments being available as a mini deck, specific to tarot, that's probably like, I don't follow a ton of news and I don't know a ton of things. Like, there's a lot of cool new decks that are coming out around Halloween, which seems to be like it's tarot Christmas. And some interesting new books that are coming out, like Anthony Dawn's Tarot Grimoire, that I would really like to read. And there's just, so there's a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of, for me, like more books on working with tarot together. Oh, and I guess probably back up here for a second. The best news in tarot that I heard lately was the release of Don Michelle and Lisa Pepez's Dice Divination project, and the fact that they made that accessible for free to everyone who wanted to download their guidebook and learn to do dice divination. I had bought a set of dice several weeks, months before, because I knew that they were coming up with something, and I had my dice, I was ready, I wanted to participate, and so I was super excited about that. And I just yesterday printed out their guidebook so that I could start to integrate more of the dice divination into my practice. So again, I think it's the things that I'm most excited about in the tarot community are the things that are sort of around the edges. There are so many decks coming out and so many people working in tarot right now that it's interesting to see how they're adding new ideas, like the dice divination, like the tarot grimoire, like tarot and spell work, like all of these things that help to involve tarot more in everybody's everyday life and in different ways. Those are the things I'm excited about. Okay, next on the list is how many tarot decks are on my to-get list. It's a revolving door. I wouldn't say that there's anything in particular. I think maybe I have 1 or 2 Kickstarter decks that I'm waiting on. I think one of them is an Oracle deck. But yeah, so for the most part, it's occasionally I'll go back to, there are some like higher priced indie decks that kind of live permanently in my favorites list on Etsy or whatever. And I'm like, when I have enough money, I will purchase this deck. But a lot of the mass market decks, I tend to just hit buy it now as soon as I see something that I want. So I have very little impulse control. Let's see, if I could only keep 3 decks. This is such an odd question, and I know that this comes up in so many other tarot tags or other projects, but I have kind of come all the way around full circle, and one of the decks that I go back to over and over again is your classic Rider-Waite-Smith Centennial Edition in the tin. Like, honestly, like I have moments where this is what goes in my bag, and so is this the deck that I'm most loyal to? Probably one of the most loyal, which is surprising because I have gone around and around about it, and I know that there's not a lot of diversity and there's not a lot of representation, and it's, there is some like hardcore Christian overtones that some people don't like, but overall it is where we come from as a tarot community, to a large extent. And so I find that I go back to it because I feel like I'm going back to the original text or the original story, or the original first edition kind of thing, and rereading it and being like, oh yeah, that's why so-and-so in their deck did this other thing, So if I only had to have 3 decks, the Smith-Waite Centennial Edition would definitely be one of them. The Tarot de Carlotides is my favorite deck, and the one that I tend to pick up the most often, also because it's not much bigger than this. So little tiny hands, little tiny decks. I love it for so many reasons, but that is certainly one of them. And I waffled about like, what would the third deck be? And you know, I mean, I love so many of my decks, and it's really hard. Like everybody talks about, like, you know, if you were on a desert island and you could only have so many decks. And so depending on my mood, it would probably be either The Secret of the Witch's Garden would be my third deck, or, and this seems really strange, I know, but the Paulina Tarot. So this one I go back to over and over again, and surprising how much I've ended up liking it, because I really didn't expect to like it at all. So so that's 4. One of them is the Smith-Waite. So does it really count? I don't think it does. How does knowing tarot influence my everyday? Well, I mean, I do try to do a tarot pull, like tarot card of the day. So I feel like I'm always being touched by tarot in some way, just by doing my daily pull. But I mean, it's such a huge part of the community, my life, you know. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I'm always reading some tarot text book, and I've been designing my own tarot deck. So like I'm pretty immersed, pretty much part of everything. So yeah. And let's see, if I could turn back time, would I try to learn tarot in any other way? Oh, heck yes. I wouldn't have been such a chicken about asking for help in the 90s, so that I could be 30 years more knowledgeable about tarot than I am right now. That's the long and short of it. Next question. What are your thoughts on the Three of Swords? Okay, I'm going to come out of the tarot closet in a big way and be probably one of the only people who says, I love the classic Three of Swords with the heart stabbed with 3 swords. I just feel like it's such a classic image. So many people recognize it. They recognize it as part of the tarot. It's so iconic. Is it perfectly aligned with what a lot of people interpret the Three of Swords to be, being of the mind, being, you know, like, you know, stabbing in the heart feels like it should be part of a cups suit, whatever. I appreciate it for what it stands for and where it lives, and, you know, lessons learned the hard way. And oftentimes a good poke to the heart is a good way to learn a lesson. But probably the most out of the closet I can get is, there you have it, folks. I have the Three of Swords, in this case, the heart being made out of yarn, tattooed on my body. So I'm cool with it. I like it. I appreciate it. So there you have it. How many decks do I have right now? I say this, I think I have probably a little more than 60 tarot and a little more than 60 oracle decks. I also have a couple Lenormand, but I have a fairly decent stash of decks in the Purgatory box that keep getting moved in and out of Purgatory. So some that are in my regular stash get put into Purgatory, and then things in Purgatory come out. So really, I probably have closer to, between all of them, probably closer to 150, 200 decks, which shocks me because I have been essentially collecting up until 2021. I had 2 decks, and now I have 150. So yeah, it's been a steep slope. So okay, only 2 more questions. The next question is, if I could befriend anyone on TarotTube, who would it be? And I have a terrible girl crush on A Year and a Day. Jenny at A Year and a Day. She has been, just the minute that I saw her first video and how sweet she is, and her Blythe dolls, and she and I, whether she knows it or not, have I think a similar aesthetic. I also collect Blythe dolls. So yeah, it's just she's just one of those people where I'm like, I think we'd be really good friends if we ever met. But there's so many other people on TarotTube that I would love to get to know better. In the next few months and or the next couple of years, or if we ever have an opportunity to meet each other. You know, of course, the legends of TarotTube like Lisa Pepez and Dawn Michelle and Danny Mystic, but also people like Shanna D and Blushing Rose. Like there's, you know, I'm starting to follow more and more people all the time, and I just think it's a cool community, and I hope that I get to meet them someday. So, my favorite part of the day to do tarot. This seems like a weird way to end it. It should have been the other way around. I think it should have ended with who do you want to be friends with? But my favorite part of the day to do tarot, theoretically, I would like to do my daily pull in the morning, but oftentimes I do it before I go to bed. And just because I get up and I'm a very groggy human. So being able to pull a card first thing in the morning, I feel like is tarot getting the worst part of me. I'm a little bit more of a night owl, and so oftentimes it's easier to do it at night, and I tend to do it as either a reflection or what do I need to focus on for tomorrow. So thank you so much for putting up with me and my babble. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I realized that I did not show a ton of tarot cards and tarot decks because this was front facing, and my editing skills are still not fabulous to do up and down and up and down. So anyway, thank you. I look forward to talking to you again, and I'll see you later.